throw us a sort of a dinner out of nowhere in his home. So that was wonderful. So I feel myself at home here, and now I'll be coming to my books as Usman. Initially, it was designed to talk about two of the chapters from my book. The title was like Memorial, the working title that I gave was like Memorial Configurations of Violence in South Asian Fiction. But meanwhile, I just took this idea, why don't we have a book launch? Because since I have to start, my second book has arrived in 2022, its international edition was out in June 2022, and the national edition that is available here for your as well, it came quite shortly, recently, say a month back, and this was the idea. Someone said, okay. Previously, you have been listening to dramatics, dramaturgy, dramaturgs, and I was telling offhand to your teacher, Swanza, that I have been running away from drama out of my life, and I have been the mathematics at Government College University, Hyderabad in the year 2005. That is one of the earliest years of that university. I joined this university in 2005 when they inducted their teachers for the first time. So I'm serving here for the last 18 years. It has been a wonderful journey. In the meanwhile, I also happen to discover some of the works by Usman Ali as well. Now on the calling Shah Jahan, that Shah Jahan now. So it's a wonderful name for a male to have, and we need to celebrate, of course. You have been listening to drama. Now I'm moving to fiction. Okay. So I hope that this transition is going to be fruitful as well as healthy. And we will be, in the meanwhile, we'll be talking about some ideas, and I will be mainly talking about my two books, and because every book has a story. It's not that you end up as a writer. You have to work for that. My greatest of the dreams that I used to have right from my childhood and in the times as you find yourself in right now, the students of graduation, it was my dream to write books, because I started my childhood like common children, reading Angu Bangu, Chan Changlu, the Imran series. Have you, any one of you have ever read these works? Any one of you? Angu Bangu, Chan Changlu, Tarzan? Yes. Oh, thank God. How patriarchal that women are talking about Tarzan. You could have found your own patriarchal side of heroes. Now we have Miss Marvel as well. I hope that you know about it. So it's a sort of Miss Marvel is a sort of rejoicing in the power of women, and so like a common boy, I was reading stories, and at the back of my mind, it was always there. I want to contribute to this world of literature by contributing a couple of books. Initially, it starts with a couple of books, but when you end up with a couple of books, you would love to write more. Like right now, I wish that I died with, say, 2 dozen books on my cane. So, you see, you get more hungrier. So, books were always there. I wanted to become an author, and the road to becoming an author became easier for me through my PhD. Because the discipline, so I will be referring to the help that you seek from your discipline, that is English literature. I hope that maybe all of you belong to English literature field or English linguistics field. I don't know whether it is linguistics or literature side of your well, good. Mine one is literature. So my discipline, when I entered into MPhils, when I entered into PhD, I was bound to contribute to research. researching is very important for authors. Like Usman Saab has written a lot many dramas. Without research, they might not have been possible. An author is the person who is grounded in his society, as Art Recha, if I pronounce his name correctly. He was referring to the context of the time in which the texts, they develop themselves or they appear within the reach of the readers. So my discipline, that is English literature, and by virtue of being a student of PhD and supposed to write research, as we all are, your graduation students, but definitely your MPhils and your PhDs. Some of you, I hope, that will be ending in PhD classes, and many of you will be going to MPhils classes. But right now, at PS level, probably you are not expected to contribute to this writing field as vigorously as we might be expecting it from you in your MPhils and PhDs. So it's a training right now. Being in graduation, subjecting yourself to your own discipline. Like I have studied my discipline. A few days back, I was telling one of my friends that I have spent over 30 years as a regular student of this subject. I started reading literature as my subject in intermediate, as an elective subject. So you see, from we are co-evals as we were discussing. So from 90s, early 90s till now, it amounts to almost 30 years that I have spent myself reading literature as a subject. But I was reading Anand Bangu when I was hardly able to read. I was reading Imran series. I was reading Talud. That is, I have even read Khawateen Digest. See, as many of the participants here are women, so I hope that all of you have read Akhbar-e Jahan's Teen Aur Teen Kahaniyan.
Yes.
I have read it for several years. There is a hand raising woman there. Good. We share the same reading habits. So these are the habits that actually pave way for our future. And my subject was, in a way, contributing towards my making as the producer of, as the author of these two couple of books. And there are two more books which might be, if I am successful in dealing with them appropriately in time, probably you will be, if there is another conference next year, I might be coming for my third book as well as my fourth book, because I'm planning to publish them by 2023. So this one is my first book, National Validation and Restoring Identities in Pakistan and Anglophone 9/11. I would not say that it is an important book, but I would say that I was among those people from Pakistan who were looking at, right, I can say that when 9/11 happened, I was in graduation at that time, rather in masters, right? And I was on vacation, I was visiting my hometown, and in the evening when I was sitting like a potato in front of my TV, I happened to see, aeroplanes ramming into the Twin Towers, the mighty Twin Towers, and they were collapsing down, and there was a smile coming on my face. The very same smile that you might have read with Chengiz.
Yes.
This novel came in 2007. See? And I'm talking about 2000. It was, 9/11 times. The smile came to me naturally. Why? Well, of course, being a Pakistani, probably it is at the back of my mind that Pakistanis have always been, a state of proxy for Americans to have their own experiments. And nowadays, when my second book has hit the market, it has occurred within the context of the failure of three greatest states from South Asia. India is fighting with the Lutwa. The Lala of Gujarat, that is Narendra Modi, is the premier, has been the chief minister for Gujarat. He is the butcher of Gujarat. Some of the epithets have been given to him. the being butcher of Gujarat. This state, the mighty state of India, as you look at the map of the world and you just focus yourself on the South Asian region, you'll see that a very large chunk of, portion of map takes the Indian place, the country of India. The triangular country of India takes a lot of the space of the map that you look at. And the other country is Pakistan. We are still trembling with the shakes of the aftermath of the, regime change. We're talking about it. And Sri Lanka has come out to be a failed state. You know, we are talking about a failed in a matter of time, in a jiffy of time. Probably in a couple of months, if it happens the way it is projected, but hopefully it doesn't happen to us. I hope so. I believe that Pakistan doesn't have the same fate as that of Sri Lanka. But my book comes in the context in which three of these states from South Asia have almost failed themselves in carrying themselves out, either as a benevolent state. If we look at India, India has not been able to safeguard the minorities, that it has always stood forward to projecting itself of champion. India has always, said that this is the state belief that India is one of the best states on the map of the world with the democratic values as well as the, the harmony, the inter-religious harmony, because we know that there are more than 20% minorities in India, whereas in Pakistan we have only 3% minorities in Pakistan. So you see that the onus of the burden of responsibility on India is much more bigger than it is on Pakistan to take care of its minorities. And in the wake of that, when there are bigger responsibilities, there are bigger expectations from the world as well. India has failed itself to refrain from Hindutva-led, government, and we see that how the cases of lynching, violence, because after all, the central theme of this conference is violence, right? So violence at the hands of one of its, rather we can say that state-led, Hindutva doctrine-led majority of Indian nation. They are every day we have these stories coming from various parts of India that how the minorities, say the Jamaats, the little castes, outcasts of Indian culture are subjected to violence and murdered brutally. These are the common stories in India, if we happen to see some of the channels. But we do not have much time to go forward to, the dramas, the soaps coming from India. So women, because there are many women sitting here, and I know that we love to see soaps. Anyways, but this isn't to be lord jati ka nazar kya kije, Faiz says that. So my subject has led me towards my books, and my area of interest is post-colonial studies. You might have read this as a subject.
Yes.
Graduation. Post-colonial studies, like Art Rocha Saab was saying, like Usman Ali was saying, that the main aim of, and one of the questions was that either violence can lead to redemption. Of course it does, in a way, because violence always has a response coming. Now there might be several kinds of responses. One of the responses is the literary activism. What do you think that why do writers write? What is the need of writing plays? Because drama is that immediate medium of conveying the message to the people sitting in front of you and seeking the response in that very moment. So it is a very difficult art form, drama, on the part of the dramatist as well as on the part of the actors as well as the receivers, because the medium, the whole process of communication is occurring within that 3 hours time, and it is a difficult art form. Likewise, the other genres of literature, like we have four main genres apart from drama, we have poetry, we have fiction, we have prose, and we have film. You see, usually at education centers, that is like this one, and many others, it is thought that film is probably outside the domain of studies, and it is say that it is more of a an awkward sort of a medium because it involves different cultures, and different cultures have affinities towards various kinds of acts that are not allowed socially. So we see that Iranian cinema, probably some of you might have seen some Iranian movies. If you have ever looked into Iranian cinema, you will see that how it is prone towards depicting the social side of Iran. You will not find any numbers. You will not find any music. You will be just given a punch in your face, right? But the movie insisting upon the social strata that is existing in Iran, and many of the Iranian movies are banned in Iran. The Iranian cinema is the reclassified cinema. So, and in Pakistani cinema we have Maula Jat, right? We have the revival of Maula Jat. But once again, cinema is another tier of literary studies, which has always contributed towards the uplift of our thoughts and has contributed towards the making of its people, right? So all these genres of literature, they are activist genres. Like if there was a chorus in drama, moving from right to left to right in a dance way, and celebrating Bacchus, Dionysus, I call him Dionysus, probably my pronunciation is not as correct as Sadhucha was calling him, like I don't remember what he was calling. Dionysus. So it's very difficult for me to pronounce it likewise. Dionysus, I used to call him. I have always called him Dionysus. So celebrating life, but once again, what was that? Talking about, do you think that Greek literature, the stories in Greek literature of Agamemnon, his wife Clytemnestra being murdered by her own son, patricide, why? Because she was to revenge on Iphigenia, because Iphigenia was to be married to Achilles, which was actually a game. Iphigenia was told that she's going to be married away to Achilles, the greatest of the warriors of, who were they? I don't remember what they were called.
Mohammedans,
right? So Achilles was gay, in a way. So Achilles, she was promised to Achilles, and on this pretext she was taken to the war field, because at Elis, that was the place where the winds were not favorable, and she was sacrificed there. And now the woman's side has always been, it has been missing. Clytemnestra's side has been missing. Whose Orestia is the trilogy of Aeschylus? Who was Aeschylus? A male. But we need to look at the Clytemnestra angle, right? And so the debate goes on. But drama was at that time, Greek literature in itself is actually basing on Greek mythology. So what is Greek mythology? Greek mythology is a religion in which people do not believe any longer. You see, stories are become religion if we believe in them. See, and religion is told in a historical way to remain always there. So, which is the vice versa. It is each of the things are overlapping. So, literature with its forms, poetry, epic was talking about wars, drama was immediately in negotiation with the people, prose, novel, and film. All these mediums are actually ways of activism. So, violence breeds redemption. I wanted to make this point. Now I come to my first book, National Imagination. In the students of literature, this work will open up to you a side of literary criticism that I tried to bring forward, because prior to my work, there are only a few people who have converted their PhD thesis into a book. You know, so if we are contributing towards research, we should publish it. Now, it should not be hidden. But much of the faculty members across Pakistani universities publish because they want to move ahead. They want to become professors, associate professors, or PhDs, or they want to see the job of a lecturer. So they are into publishing, they are into researching. But my request to you, because you are in the nascent years of your studies, is that please, if you feel like doing research, do it. Otherwise, you don't need to waste your time and the sort of job we are supposed to do, right? Because why I have talked about the activism part. It's very important for us, right? I cannot go on road and start yelling at different things that are happening in society. Likewise, you cannot. But what can you do? You can write. You are training yourself into a discipline that is English literature. Now it is not English literature with capital E. As you can see in my introduction, I love to read voraciously fictions in Englishes. I did not write that E in capital H. What does it mean? It means that whatever is translated into English, if it is fiction, it has to be in my library. It is in my library. It has always been in my library. See, I may not read all the novels, but I have all those novels. I like to keep them in my library. So, being students of literature, our task as literary activists is to produce research that is meaningful, that is helpful in the uplift of the society, because we cannot yell on roads. Of course, I cannot. I can speak for hours in a decent, proper place like you people, but I cannot yell. So, you are training yourself to become researchers and to contribute to your field with your brain open, eyes open, right, and think positively, whatever you can contribute. Whatever new texts, because these are cultural representations and these are in negotiation with the culture. So whatever text comes in your way, you read it and you respond to it. That text in itself is a response to violence. A writer is the person who has the capacity to see violence in its naked form. That is why he responds to it through his book, through his papers, through contributions, his contributions to journals, right? So it is the task of the students of English literature to conversate with their surroundings and translate their ideas into tangible words which may be helpful for the society. Now, how I was trying to be useful for my society by writing this book, first book, which was based on my tradition. Well, I was seeing that by then, the sort of criticism that was produced was scarce. You see, that was talking about 9/11. 9/11 happened in 2000. There were no novels coming from the West in the early years. Say, the first 9/11 novels to come from West were in about 2006. But there is a gap between 2000 and 2006 of any kind of literary response. Why? Because trauma. The authors could not get out of their trauma. The American writers started writing about that, Don DeLillo and others. They were writing novels by 2006 about that situation they had to have in 2000 in the shape of 9/11. It was also a high time for them to think about why it has happened. And likewise, Pakistani writers like in 2007, Mohsen Hamid was publishing The Electoral Fundamentalist, and Shaila Abdullah was publishing Saffron Dreams. I have chosen 10 texts since 9/11, written by Pakistani novelists, and I have labeled them as 9/11 fiction because I wanted our readers not to avoid this particular phrase. The West was saying that America has produced 9/11 novels, while Pakistani thinkers and writers from the academia, they were saying that after 9/11, the literature that has been produced, the fiction, especially Anglophone fiction, it has talked about 9/11 in retrospect. It was an interesting way. One of our colleagues, Arusa Kamal's book, if some of you are familiar with that book, that was the first full-length book about 9/11. But it did not, it came in 2015. My book came in 2020, whereas I could have published it in 2018, but due to academic problems and other things, my degree could not come through. Whereas I have submitted my thesis, 2 years back. So there are things like that. But my response was very much ready. And when that book came, I was wondering that why the author has not talked about these novels that I have picked up as 9/11 fiction. So it was my niche, it was my corner to settle in, to contribute, and I did. And I have talked in this book 5 novels going through each category of national imagination and days for identities. So what I was trying to do was, I was talking about 5 novels as the novels that were talking about national imagination, because it is theoretical binding, right? So this book was bound by theoretical theme. That is as we know as literary students, that our work has to derive its rigor from the theoretical background. We have to contextualize our study in theory, in literary theory, right? So post-colonial theories, one aspect was that print mediums, newspaper as well as novel, these are print mediums, 2 kinds of print mediums, by Benedict Anderson. He was the theorist, and he said that these two these 2 items from print medium help evolve national imagination. So I took from there that phrase and I put it on those 5 novels and tried to see that how in Pakistani society those novels are negotiating with the times in which they are written. And to my astonishment, I have found in those texts, I think you have known Nadeem Aslam. Some of you might have known Nadeem Aslam, one of the leading writers in Pakistan. Blind Man's Garden is one of the texts. The other text is The Spinner's Tale by Omar Shahid Hamid, if you have heard his name. And there is another text by Beena Shah, if you have heard her name, The Season for Martyrs. Like, I've chosen these five texts which showcase Pakistani society after 9/11 with the worst of the conditions, that our people cannot go to cinemas, as I was talking about this thing last night with Kashif Saab as well. Those days we could not move outside. You people might have been very young, but those who are grown up, you can confirm it from your uncles, your cousins, your parents. They will tell you that cinema literally went dead in those years, right? There was no going to cinema, there were no gatherings outside, right? So our life was choked, and there was one possibility, faced by every Pakistani, was that there can be a bomb blast anywhere. Yes. You see, we were so unsure about our life. Life had became precarious. So in a way, I tried to give the punch back to the Western academia. That you people are talking about your side of the world, that how you have suffered after 9/11. Just look at us, that how we have suffered, that our life has gone. Nowadays, it is a common thing that people say that more than 65,000 were killed. Whereas it is more than that. Of course, the official figures are always lesser than the real figures. So I was trying to tell that how, by writing these 5 novels that I discussed in the early part of my book, first part of my book, were contributing to the national imagination by making the terrorists outcasts. Right? We can see the characters of terrorists as outcasts in these novels. We can see the common Pakistani character fictionalized in these novels as fighting terrorism around him, right? By looking forward towards life, choosing life in the face of death. And the other portion I was talking about, days for identity, that how Pakistanis in America were, thrown out of those societies. Like, if you have read Homeboy, this is another famous text, Homeboy, by Ishaq Naqvi. Any one of you who has read this novel, you will see that the hero of Chuck, issue of that novel, and he decides to return to Pakistan in the wake of 9/11. Why? Because the outcosting of Pakistanis was so much obvious that even 6 with beards were killed brutally, considered to be Muslims. So the American society was so much blighted. So you see, all these novels are somehow talking about violence, post-9/11 violence, either at Pakistan, at the space of Pakistan, or at the space, American space, right? So when I was taking the post-colonial theoretical paradigm, because the post-colonial theoretical paradigm helps us, rather allows us to shuffle the power dynamics, right? So post-colonial theory is a very radical theory. It gives us this chance to stand against the big narratives and come up with our own local narratives. So that was a way out for me to negotiate my own text, socio-political context, with the help of the novels, because I could not yell out, because I could not cry. I could only simply continue to do my research about these things I felt at daily basis. Moving to the next book, this was the book which was talking about Pakistani writers. And I moved to the second book, with more larger boundary for myself, South Asia. So I pick up 6 novels. Now these are the times, this book also was a ploy. So you can learn that my schemes, as an academician, if you are an academician in the future, you can learn from my way out. Because being an academic, and I have to progress in my, in my field as well. I have to seek my progress, academic progress, lecture, AP. So I have to go like that. I have to produce papers. Whereas book doesn't get any reward in Pakistan. Abroad, if you tell someone that you are a writer, they are moved. They are shaken by it, right? But in Pakistan, book in academia, unfortunately, because you would be more interested in buying the phata copies. I call them phata copies. Not having books. I have 4,000 books in my library, books, legal books. But because I love books, touching a book, feeling it, the texture of the page, the smell of it, it's enriching. And I'm also living in this contemporary world. I have this small gadget, it has more than 1,800 books in it, duly purchased by Amazon. So, I am a poor man, I'm a teacher. My wife is a teacher, so I'm rich.